My dad's name is Steve Hudson. He was assistant dean at a school called Academy for Learning, which is an alternative high school for students that are struggling at their main school behavior-wise. And he was also assistant director for Thornwood High School as assistant athletic director at Thornwood High School. And also he was a coach for a Nike elite team called Mac Urban Fire. So he was everything. He literally was everyone's dad. He welcomed everybody with open arms. Our house was like, I always say, like, our house was like an adoption center, basically, because once you come, my dad is like, okay, you're family. And, you know, a lot of my friends are taking this hard because they see my dad as the father figure that they never had, or the father figure that they wish they had. So he was just amazing. He touched a lot of people. He was really heavily involved in basketball and trying to help basketball players that were up and coming in the city to make sure they had the right resources and to even get looked at to go to college, and they didn't have the resources. So he used to basically bring them in like, hey, I have this player that I feel like have a lot of potential. They just don't have the resources, and he provided them resources. And he sent a lot of students, a lot of NBA players, a lot of WNBA players, a lot of people respected him because he was able to bring talented kids to them that didn't have the opportunity, to give them an opportunity. Like I said, he right here, like even I call him my little brother, but you know, he have jerseys everywhere, signed jerseys from everywhere. We have Cappy Pondexter's USA jacket and jersey when she played in the Olympics, and he helped a lot of people get to college, get to where they are professionally, because he believed in them. And I want everybody to know that he was always an advocate to help anyone that needed it. He'll take the shirt off his back, and his motto was always like, I grew up poor, so I know how it is. So since he got it, you got it. And I was able for 27 years to share my dad in that light, and no one can ever speak negatively about him. Like, a lot of people was affected by this because he was just so amazing, so amazing to everyone.
Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson for STL TV, and we're continuing our special reporting on COVID-19, and I'm now joined by Malauna Hudson from Chicago, who sadly lost her father a few weeks back to COVID-19, and we're going to dedicate this interview to him and have Malauna talk about him and share her story, but his story particularly, and just kind of go from there. Malauna, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk about my dad and to bring awareness and let everybody know this is real and it's affecting families around the country, around the world. So I'm happy to be here and to be an open book and talk about it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I just want to start things off first by offering my condolences to you. But just if you could take us back, if we could kind of go back basically a month ago and just kind of walk me through and tell me what happened.
Okay. So my mom and my dad were sick for like a week, and like I was like, I live in Las Vegas. So I'm like calling like every day, like, hey, you guys feel better? Like they don't think they have coronavirus or anything. They just like, oh, you know, we're just kind of sick. And then like after a while, my mom saying like, you know, she haven't really been eating. Her and my dad haven't been eating like that because they don't really have an appetite. So my dad, you know, he has some pre-existing conditions. He was had diabetes, high blood pressure, and he was anemic. So when he's sick is like completely like, you think like how men get sick and they get like a child and be like baby, but no, when he's sick, he gets really sick. So like my mom was saying like how, you know, his body was feeling weak and he couldn't really get out of bed and he wasn't able to even eat an apple or he'll throw up. So he wasn't able to eat for a couple of days. So picture that on top of like he has to take his medication. So you take an insulin, you take a high blood pressure pills, you take iron pills, and you're on an empty stomach. So his body was getting weak. So on March 26th, my mom like begged my dad, like, go to the hospital. We got to figure out what's going on. Like, let's go to the hospital. And my dad was he was very much against it. He was scared out of his mind. So he wasn't able to sleep, eat, nothing like that. And they went to the hospital, and then they was asking about symptoms and everything. And then they asked my mom like how she's doing. She was getting on the downside of it. So when they heard my dad's symptoms and stuff, they immediately like took him away from my mom and took him to the emergency room. And that was the last time my mom seen him. Like they didn't get to do a hug goodbye, a kiss goodbye, or nothing. That was the last time she seen him. I'll call him, and he was on oxygen. So they was telling us like, you know, his vitals wasn't doing so well and like stuff like that. Is because of course he's got to take insulin and everything else on top of like trying to fight a respiratory illness. So it was kind of like we're trying to do our best with a new foreign thing that we're unaware of.
And well, it sounds like just from day to day to day, what you're describing is that it just kept shifting day to day to day. And then
it was very stressful because like we'll be so hopeful and we'll be so like, yes, like he's gonna get out soon, and then 2-3 hours later we get something else. So we was like, okay. So they was like, yeah, we had to put him in a medicated coma because we couldn't lay him flat because we couldn't get the catheter in, because every time we laid him flat, he was losing oxygen. So they put the catheter in by having him in a medicated coma. So my mom was like, okay, when y'all going to take him out the coma? They was like, oh, you know, we're going to just keep him in the coma until like, you know, we see his vitals go up. So again, the next day, they telling us his vitals are getting better. We're just going to keep him in the coma and then give him his dialysis. So basically the medication was the dialysis. So they was like, okay, we're going to do another round of dialysis. Okay. So Sunday, so that's April 5th, Sunday, they told us again, his vitals was going up. They was giving us the numbers, and the numbers was looking good and stuff. And then that night they was like, oh, we're going to give him one more round of dialysis while he is in his coma still. And then so the nurse would ask my mom like, hey, do you want me to call you when it's done? Because they was doing it late. They said whoever the doctors was running like doing the dialysis late. So it was like 9:30, and the dialysis is usually 3 hours. So my mom was like, yeah, no, don't call me, because if you call me, that means something went wrong. If you didn't call me, that means everything went right. So they called her at 11:23. And they told us the news that he passed because he had a cardiac arrest in the middle of his dialysis.
I'm so sorry. I know that was probably the most devastating news you could hear. Were you even at the time that you received the news translating it as, this is COVID-19, this pandemic, it's taken my father? What were you thinking at that moment when you hear that news?
I heard my mom scream. I like kind of had to walk away and like have my moment, and I wasn't even thinking like, oh my God, the corona. I'm like, no, it's like my best friend, you know, my favorite man, my like, you know, okay, my superhero just left, you know. And the last time I seen him was like probably 3 weeks prior. I would say the main thing I was really upset about that he died alone. We wasn't able to see him, and my heart was going out to my mom because her last interaction with him physically was them pulling him apart.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's always two sides to this, right? Which is, we read about the numbers and the statistics, Chicago especially, with the health disparities and how COVID-19 is really affecting African-American population in the neighborhoods. And then there's the real side, the heart of it, the emotional side, which is simply the loss of a loved one, whether that's a friend or in your case, a parent, your superhero, as you called. And so it's bringing those two things together to say, this is real, this is happening. And when it happened, you're not thinking, as you pointed out, this is COVID-19, you've just lost your father. But what do you want for people who are trying to follow this and maybe aren't following guidelines with the stay-at-home order, or who aren't for social distancing, you've just kind of had now close to what's coming on a month to slowly bit by bit process this. What is it that you think, if there's a message you want to get out there after this experience you've had to go through, what would that be to the public? What would you like to share with them?
That this COVID-19 is very prevalent in the Black community. We're more at risk of it. It's a real thing. I could say even for me, like I wasn't really taking it seriously. I took it seriously because my job was like, hey, you got to work from home. Cool, I can do that. But I didn't realize how hard it was and how much it affects everyone until it happened to me. And everyone know, like, African American healthcare, and help for African Americans is not as best.
Mm-hmm.
In the medical world, everyone know, like, African Americans are not treated as equally as their counterparts when it comes to getting help and when it comes to health. And it's kind of like we have to fend for ourselves, and we have in our mind that if we go to the hospital, more than likely we're not going to get the treatment that we need, or that or it's going to be negligence for and like I said, this is not for everyone. This is not like saying like all healthcare workers or like anyone in the medical field doesn't care about African Americans, but this is just statistically speaking, African Americans have been more, more at risk when it comes to larger health issues based on negligence, based on customer service, and based on the need. And with this being a new virus, a new strand, coronavirus always been around. This is a new strand, everyone. So this is something that they don't have a vaccine for. So you got to think about it like this. It takes a year or more just to get a vaccine. So think about, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do now and you got to wait a year to get, like, how many more deaths we're going to have. We're almost up to 1 million people getting affected by this. Mm-hmm. So it's really real out here, especially I want to speak for the African American community. This is real. Don't think it's not real. This is a really real thing, because I was literally just like everybody else, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is like blown out of proportion until it happened to me.
Right. He sounds like an amazing person, and I would have loved to have met him. And I know that this has impacted your family, and as you just described, so many other people, so many basketball players that you said, so many students, his colleagues, and your mother as well. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to, on behalf of STL TV, everyone at the station, we want to extend our true sympathies to you and to your mother and to your entire family. I'm sorry you've had to go through this, but I know in sharing your story that you're helping people understand that there's a real emotional impact and a real side to this outside of just reading the statistics and the headlines. So thank you so much for your time this evening. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us and sharing your father's just a little bit of his big career and his big life.
Yeah,
I could
go on and on about him. He's truly God sent, and I think that it took him to leave for people around us to seriously be like, okay, this is a real thing. Like a lot of people reached out to me and my family like, hey, I wasn't taking this seriously until this happened. So even though it's sad, I feel like he fulfilled his mission here on Earth, and I'm very proud to say that I'm his daughter, and I'm proud to say that I got to witness him fulfill his purpose. So I want to say thank you for the opportunity to have me speak about it, bring awareness, and also speak about my dad, because he will want this. He will want this, and I love being an advocate for something that is going on that I can help out with. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we've just heard from Malauna Hudson. Thank you again. And for more information, we're going to continue to follow the pandemic in different interviews, different news stories. So you can follow everything we have at stltv.net. Also be sure to follow us on our social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube page. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more STL TV.